the problem that is 78 Haywood Street. That is known as the Basilica property, which isn't really, it's a city-owned property. But there it is, front and center, the hottest piece of property in downtown Asheville, yet somehow remained vacant for over a decade. And it's now become the focal point of an upcoming city council election where we have 3 candidates that are in favor of seeing some form of development on the site and 3 that are in favor of this, a vision produced by the Friends of St. Lawrence, St. Lawrence something, Green, thank you. And it's posing us with a dichotomy, a choice, a false choice, I think, in some ways, that we can only have one or the other, development or a green. I think we're approaching the equation from the wrong end. We're groping for an answer when what we really need to do is step back and understand what is the problem that we're trying to solve. And really, that's what design is all about, is problem solving. You know, if you were to hire an architect to redesign your kitchen, she's not going to show up with a full set of plans ready-made. Instead, she's going to sit down with you and she's going to ask, how do you intend to use the space? How does that space work with the rest of the house? And ultimately, that design process is going to yield a result that's going to meet the client's needs and solve as many problems as possible. That's how the community design process works as well. The only problem is that you don't have one client, you have thousands. And it can lead to a very messy, very confusing process, but if it's done well, you can find the commonalities and ultimately find a design solution that meets and solves as many problems as possible. So let's try and understand the problem that is 78 Haywood Street. City bought this property in 2004 for $2.4 million. At the time, the city was trying to solve a different kind of problem. We didn't have enough downtown parking. So the idea was to buy an adjoining lot as well and build a monstrous parking deck, multi-story deck that wrapped around Battery Park Hotel. It was immediately met with opposition. In 2005, 3 city council candidates that opposed this development were voted onto the city council. The project died on the vine, followed by a convention center and a hotel that didn't go anywhere and left us now with this pit of despair. The question now is, where are we going to go from here? And the problem that the city is now dealing with is, how do we recoup the $2.5 million that we've invested in this site? Unfortunately, I think, this is my opinion, is that they are trying to sell the property to a private developer. And that means the entire 0.8 acres that they are looking to sell. What that leaves us at the mercy of the developer to see if they're going to carve out an adequate space for a civic space, a plaza, that this site desperately calls for. It's missing the context. I think that it's unaware of the context that surrounds the site, particularly the Basilica of St. Lawrence. This is a national treasure. Rafael Guastavino designed it over a century ago, and right now its forecourt is a surface parking lot. It's almost an insult to the building to think that that's what it has to look out on. It has created a hole in our urban fabric. If you think about what surrounds this site, we have the library, we have the Civic Center, the Basilica, Battery Park, the Grove Arcade, yet right in the middle we have this vacant hole. If we were to create a vibrant civic space in that site, it would knit the entire area together, and that's what we're really hoping to see. On either side of the property, we have 2 low-income, elderly apartment complexes. The residents there have confided in me that it's a very lonely, very solitary life when they're in their apartments. What they need to do is get outside, they need to be able to interact with others, and they don't have very much available space outside to do that. In fact, for Vanderbilt apartment residents, this is the only space that they have. Someone constructed a bench and put it outside the library. But when I asked Edna what would she like to see across the street, she said a shady place to sit, not grass, but actually a hard surface that wheelchairs and walkers can get over, and most importantly, the opportunity to engage with others. The site presents that opportunity. You know, we have about a 15-foot grade change on the site, which is typically a huge challenge to developers to deal with, but look at how Rome dealt with it. The Spanish Steps are iconic. They actually connect 2 different plazas, but it's so well designed, the steps themselves have created their own gathering space. We also need to address the pedestrian and vehicle circulation around the area. If you've been to a Civic Center event, or if you've even just tried to cross the street during business hours, you know that you're taking your life in your hands. it can be addressed. And we've actually discovered one of the potential solutions. We've run it through City Hall and we've found some favor in it. And the idea is to close the Page Street extension. That's the orange stripe that you see there. By closing the Page Street extension, first of all, we immediately clear up the Haywood and Flint Street intersection and make it much easier for pedestrians and vehicles to navigate. While at the same time, we're affording additional space for that forecourt that the Basilica so desperately needs. But by closing the extension, we also need to address vehicle circulation, and a Battle Street extension can provide that. A driver can be coming up Page Street and either take a left to connect to Otis or a right to connect back to Haywood. But really, the most important question that remains unresolved is who's going to own this site? If we're going to get a civic space, who's going to own it and who's going to manage it? Because if the entire site is sold to a private developer, then we run the risk that we get this. This is no offense to the Biltmore corporate offices, but this is not a plaza. It is a green Band-Aid. You need you either need to climb over a wall or over a bench to get into that space. And if the design doesn't tell you that you're not welcomed, well, there's plenty of signage to tell you that you aren't welcomed. The BB&T Plaza, same thing. It's designed for a corporation. It was not designed for people. You don't feel welcome there. You feel like you're trespassing, and that's why it's always empty. So if you're interested in learning more, please feel free to visit our website at AshevilleDesignCenter.org. We have a project page. You can get our design principles that we hope will guide development for this site. And then lean on your city council and say, you know what we need to do? We need to stop groping for answers. We need to step back and actually embrace a true design process that's going to yield a great design that's going to make our downtown stronger. Thank you.